Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our new time. We're going to start every day live at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Of course, you can watch our show on demand anytime, but we're going to be live at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time from now on. Please spread the word. All right, we got a great show for you today. We're going to start out with a huge, as Trump would say, a huge win out in Texas. A mayor in a predominantly Democratic area, controlled pretty much by Hispanics, that Hillary Clinton won, to give you some perspective, in 2016. Now, this is out in Texas, where Hillary Clinton won this city, and we'll get into the details in a moment, by 40 points. Well, a Republican won the mayor's race there yesterday or over the weekend, and we were going to tell you all about it. And then, there's this big story in Washington right now about Joe Manchin, and of course, I would throw Kirsten Sinema in there as well. But Joe Manchin has come out publicly in an op-ed piece and said he is not going to support this SB Senate bill, the For the People Act. And I tell you, anytime you hear For the People, it's time to grab a hold of something, because that means we're probably going to get stuck by something and you ain't going to like it. But the For the People Act, federalizing the presidential elections, we'll talk about that. But Joe Manchin has come out now and firmly said he is not going to vote to do away with the filibuster for that particular act, which is a big, big deal. And we'll talk about it and what Joe Manchin's options may be, what Chuck Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate, man, I hate saying that, but it's a fact, what he might do and the pressure that progressive groups are putting on him. And then, of course, if we have time, and I'm going to try to make time, my governor, Ron DeSantis, has done it again. He is leading, I tell you right now, there are a lot of great governors, especially Republican governors in this great land of ours, but I would put right now Ron DeSantis at the top, and I'll tell you what he's done again. Before we go any further, I always have to talk about our sponsors, because without them and without you and without my ability to link y'all together, there would be no show. Our number one sponsor is Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU, your Second Amendment headquarters. To find links to our sponsors, simply look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it, and you will see links to our sponsors. In this case, Big Daddy Unlimited, where you will get factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door on guns, ammunition. Yes, I said guns and ammunition, and they have both, by the way, as well as over 100,000 related items, from tactical gear, swag, even Second Amendment, but tactical gear, protective wear, survival gear. If it has any connection to the Second Amendment, Big Daddy Unlimited is your go-to place for those issues. And I call them the protector of your Second Amendment headquarters, because they do that exactly on a daily basis. We have patriotthreads.org. They are a total fulfillment center. The main thing you need to remember, not only the website, patriotthreads.org, but the promo code, the initials of our show, JMT, for 20% off. Essentially what they do is produce wear, t-shirts, that kind of thing for charity events. They can help you from stem to stern, as the old salty dog says here, with that. But remember, 20% off code JMT. Check it out. Then we have Recoil TV. They have a YouTube channel, and we've been honored to partner up with them. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel. It's on live now, of course, the new time, 11 a.m. Check it out. Howdy, YouTubers. Glad to have you here. But John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. But a Recoil TV produces high-quality videos on everything Second Amendment, like demonstrating the latest guns, hardware, ammunition, all of that kind of stuff. They are your go-to place for that. And we have a channel within their channel. So what that means is we're archived inside their YouTube channel on a daily basis, and we're honored to be a part of a great organization like Recoil TV. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. This first article comes to you via Newsweek. Republican wins mayoral race in 85% Latino Texas town where Hillary Clinton won in 2016, by a whopping 40 points. And now a Republican is the mayor there. This is a very big deal, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. The city of McAllen, Texas, which is a border area town, has had a lot of issues with illegal aliens coming in and all of that. But a Texas border town that went for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump by 40 points in 2016, a little bit less, but still for Biden in 2020 as well, just elected a Republican mayor. Now, this is a bigger story than a week or so. I think last week when the New Mexico, I didn't even talk about it because to me it didn't mean anything. But there was a special election for Congress in New Mexico, and the Democrat won. And they made a big stink about it, big hoopla. Oh, this shows that Trumpism is dead and all of that kind of stuff. No, it didn't, because this is a district in New Mexico that has been consistently won by a Democrat for like 40 years or something, but a long, long time. So the fact that a Democrat won was actually not a big deal. The fact that the Republicans were able to field a viable candidate is another story. But in McAllen, Texas, for, like as I say, where Hillary won by 40 points, I think Biden won by something like 17 points over Trump in 2021, which is 85% Hispanic. This, for a Republican to win that seat, is a big, big deal. Javier Villalobos, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, defeated Democratic Veronica Vela-Whitcare by 206 votes in a runoff election over the weekend. Now, they may be able, we don't say the F word here. We talk about stuff that rhymes. So there's voter mod and stuff like that. So the fact that he won by only 206 votes is somewhat scary. Doesn't take away from his victory in any way, but it seems like they can find like manna from heaven. These Democrat votes just fall from the sky. If anytime a Republican wins in a close race, doesn't it seem like they just say, oh my God, we opened up this trunk of this car and there happened to be 207 more votes in there. That kind of thing. I challenge you. This is something I challenge you. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I can't think of a time when a Democrat was winning and a Republican was trailing that they just miraculously found Republican votes. I've never seen that. It's the other way every time. If you know of a case, let me know, because I can admit when I'm, like the Fonzie used to say, wrong, reluctantly so, but I don't see it, man. And here's the thing why this really doesn't surprise me, and it's something I've been saying really for the last couple of years, but certainly in the last few months. When you talk about illegal immigration, of course it impacts all of us in the United States, but it impacts Hispanic communities first and the fastest, especially when you're talking about illegal immigrants that are Hispanic, because most of them, or a good chunk of them, don't speak English. They have no real connections here other than maybe some previous family members who are more likely to be in a Hispanic neighborhood, and people want to feel comfortable, right? So if you didn't speak English, where would you go? Would you go somewhere where English was the predominant language, or would you go where a lot of people speak Spanish? I mean, I think it's clear. So Hispanic neighborhoods are impacted, especially on the border, for God's sakes, but especially they're impacted around the country because these Hispanic illegal immigrants come there and they overwhelm the school systems, the healthcare systems, the job market, everything else. And so Hispanic neighborhoods, whether it's right or wrong, it's just fact, are impacted quicker and to a greater level than most other neighborhoods. So to me, it's not surprising that they would rise up and say, look, I may be Hispanic, but I'm an American citizen, and this just isn't right. And there are other things, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Villalobos, and I apologize for any mispronunciation, an attorney, and this is the gentleman that won the mayorship, an attorney and former chairman of Texas Hidalgo County Republican Party, that's big to me, thanked his supporters and campaign team following his narrow victory. Former Texas Hidalgo County Republican Party chair. Now, why I say that's big is because this isn't some guy obviously pretending to be a Republican, a Democrat running for some reason in that seat. It's not like he wasn't known. He was known as a Republican, and I'm sure as the chair of the Republican Party that he supported Donald Trump in a very big way. So this guy was a known entity in that community as a legitimate Republican, most likely conservative. I really don't know that much about him, but I'm sure whether he personally felt like it, he's had to support Donald Trump, and it sounds like he personally wanted to anyway. So the fact that this gentleman was able to put together a coalition in an 85% Hispanic city, and also where Hillary Clinton, I can't overemphasize this enough, won by 40 points, that he would pull out this victory is a big, big deal. But Mr. Villalobos said, this is what he said. He said, "Thank you, McAllen, for trusting and believing in me. I promise not to let you down." Not to let you down. Well, let me tell you, here's something, sir, I think you need to do. And you may already be doing this because I don't know this gentleman. So if I'm saying something he's already do, I apologize in advance. But here's what I believe you need to do, sir. You need to keep speaking the truth. If you don't want to let your people down, tell them the truth about what's happening in not only in their community, but to the state in Texas as a greater and the country as a whole. Have the courage to keep putting it out. I assume you probably do. And you need to take John Martin's kind of axiom here for what people need to do. You need to educate yourself. I'm sure he's a very educated man, but educate yourself and most importantly others as to what's actually going on in this nation. Because keep in mind, I say all this with my firm political belief. My main political goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this nation of ours. On a side note to that, before I go any further, I spoke at a local civic organization last night. You can see it posted across my Facebook network. I went live on John Martin Talks, but it was pretty interesting. But there's a part of it that might not make sense when you're watching it because you might not catch it on the little camera I was using. But I talked about my political goal being to stop the progressive takeover of this great nation. And there were about 30 some people there. And there were 3 women got up and made a big scene about it and left the building because they said, "Oh, we just can't listen to this stuff." You know, so they were. So I guess I'm doing something right because I'm pissing off some liberals. But check it out. You might find it interesting. But I, as part of my political goal, I tell you, you got to educate yourself and others. You got to motivate yourself and others, and you got to activate yourself and others to push the America First agenda forward. And I'm assuming, and you know there's a danger in that, but that Mr. Javier Villalobos that just won the mayoralship in McAllen, Texas, is already doing that, and I would just encourage him to do more of it. Villalobos' win is part of a growing trend of incremental conservative success in South Texas, a usual Democratic stronghold. There were most of the Hispanic counties along the border there in Texas went for Trump in a big way. And they had all gone for Hillary before, but they went for Trump in a big way because, as I said earlier, Hispanic neighborhoods are knowing the truth of what this illegal immigration is doing to our great country. But it says here, a usual Democratic stronghold and a majority Hispanic area, McAllen is home to roughly 150,000 residents, of whom 85% are Latino. Well, here's the thing about Latino voters and Latino Americans. The values part of it. This is where the Republican Party, Marco Rubio talked about this, I think, in an article in Breitbart. I skimmed it. You might want to check it out. That he said that Latinos are home to stay for the Republican Party if they keep going the way they've been going. And that the values, I can tell you, you won't find a more family-oriented, a more conservative values people than Hispanic Americans. They believe in family. They believe in hard work. They're very religious people, very spiritual people, and pretty tight-knit. And they believe in the American dream. They believe in the American dream because keep in mind, Hispanic Americans, especially if they've come from the Caribbean, like Cuba, like in Florida, and certainly in Mexico and South and Central America, they know full well the failure of socialism and outright Marxism in some cases. So they know what freedom or the absence of looks like. So I find that Hispanic Americans appreciate our Constitution and our freedoms more than the average person out there. And so it is not a surprise to me that if they know the truth, they find the truth, which they definitely see it right in front, they can't ignore it in a place like McAllen, Texas, that Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, is probably right. If we can put America first values out there, I think that we will gain even more people from all walks of life, but certainly Hispanics. Clinton won Hidalgo County, which is home to McAllen, by 40.5 percentage points in 2016 presidential election. But in 2020, Joe Biden's defeat over Trump was just 17 points. So more than half they dropped, right? And now they have a new mayor, a Republican, as I say, who was chair of the local party, so they know who he is. And so this thing is moving in the right direction. But I go back to what I told you a couple months ago, I was going to repeat this often, and I'm a man of my word. If you're new to the show, I say this quite often, but as I say it, it bears repeating. And I just said it earlier, we have to continue to educate ourselves and others, motivate ourselves and others, and activate ourselves and others. And in some cases, we have to eliminate people, which is what Villalobos did in McAllen, Texas. He eliminated the progressive Democrat. And when I say eliminated, I'm talking about Mr. Algorithm, due deference to algorithm. I'm talking about by the voting booth. I always tell you, we got to man the political ramparts, because if we don't, we're going to have to man the real ones again. And that would be a dadgum shame, because that price has already been paid. But during my little talk last night, I was talking about, I had a little question and answer period. And one of the ladies asked me about what I had just said about educate, motivate, activate. She says, how do you educate yourself in the current environment? And I said to her flat out, I said, well, one way to do it would be to watch my show. And I was joking, but serious at the same time. But it is a little bit tougher, because more is not always better. But you can find it out there. You question authority, basically. And you know who originated that statement, as far as I can tell? Benjamin Franklin. I guess he was a hipster back then. Question authority. So when you just question what you see, be willing to ask questions. It is actually allowed in America, contrary to what media would have you believe. And if you quit asking questions, then you are definitely dropping your responsibility. At the congressional level last year, back to the article, Billy Bob tells me, get back to it. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, if you're new to the show, this is Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And we are absolutely determined to stay in the social media, algorithm. We have to pay attention to him, the strongest guy in social media, but we're going to stay in there. And Billy Bob keeps me straight here. So some of us are sicker than others. And yes, I am a fish whisperer, no doubt about it. But at the congressional level last year, a Republican candidate came just 3 points shy of defeating Representative Vicente Gonzalez, whose district includes McAllen. So think about that. A Republican almost took a House seat from Democrats there. Gonzalez had easily won re-election in 2018 by 21 points and barely won. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we can take back the House of Representatives. We absolutely can. But here, in my view, is the key to it. We cannot run away from the America First MAGA agenda. Now, you may or may like Donald Trump. You may be a Republican who, I wouldn't, never Trumpers in a different category, but you may think that Donald Trump should go by the wayside. I understand where you're coming from. And Donald Trump may choose to do that himself, which he has every right to do. But we cannot run away, the Republican Party, because the Democrats are pushing this idea that the Republicans are, too much in the pocket of Trump and all this. They're white supremacists. And I said last night, and this is another reason why them three ladies got up and ran out of there. I said, people don't talk about it, but Donald Trump got more votes than any Republican in the history of the United States of America, more than any incumbent president in history, period. So it's a fool's errand to run from Donald Trump. But the main point is, and I think we got to get past the 2020 election, except for what we're doing in states like Florida, Georgia, doing the legislatures are doing their constitutional duty, by the way, securing the integrity of the ballot box. We need to do that. But the main thing we need to do is make sure whoever we put forward, whether it be at a House seat, a mayor's race, I don't care. As I said, my main political goal, my only one, is stop the progressive takeover. We need MAGA people. We need America First people out there, no matter what Donald Trump chooses to do or not do. Because I've told you many times, and some people don't like this, but I'm just telling you the truth. And President Trump has referred to this as well. But if the MAGA agenda, the America First agenda, is dependent on one person, one man in this case, as great as he may be, Donald Trump, then we're doomed to fail. Because people come and go. It's just the reality of life. So this agenda has to be the number one priority of people running for office in order to win, like this gentleman did in McAllen, Texas. And we can take back the House, I believe, if we hold firm to that. If we, the American people, hold the candidates to the fire, their feet to the fire, and make sure they're pledged to America First and basically the MAGA agenda, whether it's Trump or not, then I believe we can win. Ron DeSantis is showing that right now in Florida. Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the Republican National Committee, called Villalobos' victory and another Republican mayoral win in Fort Worth a sign that voters are rejecting the Biden administration's failed policy. And the more people get educated, motivated, and activated, the more success they're going to have. We have got to get back to the U.S. Constitution. As this meme clearly says, we don't need to change the Constitution. We need to reread it, re-understand it, and reteach it to our children and to American citizens, because Ronald Reagan said very clearly that freedom is not passed on in the bloodstream, that we have to teach it to the next generation all of the time. And I talked about this last night in my little talk. As I say, go to John Martin Talks Facebook page. You can look at it. But, the vast majority, or a good chunk, let's put it that way, of Americans are ignorant and apathetic. That's why I battle on a daily basis. They're still not voting. We need to reach out to them with the truth of what's actually happening, and we will win and continue to win, which is what terrifies the Democrats and why this next story is very important. But I want to play this in conclusion, because I think my good buddy, and I say that jokingly, I wish I did know him, Maximo Alvarez, who spoke at the Republican convention, a Hispanic American, a legal immigrant from Cuba. Remember what he said, because I believe this right here is one of the most powerful speeches. We're just going to play an excerpt from it. And he's speaking to Americans as a whole, but I think Hispanics really ought to pay attention to this, because, as I said, they know the dangers of socialism and communism, because, as Maximo says, they've seen it all before. Check it out.
My family has fled totalitarianism and communism, but my families don't run away. By the grace of God, I live the American dream, the greatest blessing I ever had. My dad, who only had a 6th grade education, told me, "Don't lose this place. You'll never be as lucky as me." I'm speaking to you today because my family is done abandoning what we rightfully earned. I have seen people like this before. I've seen movements like this before. I've seen ideas like this before. And I am here to tell you, we cannot let them take over our country. And I can never forget all those who grew up around me, who looked like me, who suffered and starved and died because they believed those empty promises. They swallowed the communist poison pill. You can still hear the sounds of those broken promises. It is the sound of waves in the ocean carrying families clinging to pieces of wood. Families with children who can't swim, but willing to risk everything to reach this blessed land. Those false promises spread the wealth, free education, free health care, defund the police, trust the socialist state more than your family and your community. They don't sound radical to my ears. They sound familiar. My parents only wanted one person to decide my fate, me. In America, I would decide my own future. I am so grateful to America, the place where I was able to build my American dream. through hard work and determination. And I said this before, if I gave away everything that I have today, it would not equal 1% of what I was given when I came to this great country of ours. I still hear my dad. There is no other place to go. Thank you.
No
I may the good
place
Lord
to go.
bless America.
That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much sums it up. There is no place else to go. If we lose freedom here, if we fall, and ladies and gentlemen, we are on the precipice. I tell you that all the time, and I'm an optimistic person. But if we don't educate ourselves, motivate ourselves and others, and activate ourselves and others, we're going to lose this great experiment we call the United States of America. And Maximo is 100% right. There is no place left to go. And Hispanic Americans who have a long tradition here in this country, they, especially those people who have had, within a generation or two, have come here from places like Cuba, like now Venezuela, places where this socialism is failing them. They know it better than American citizens who have been here for generations because they've experienced it. There is no place left to go. So I'm not surprised that Hispanics in Texas and around the country now are waking up to the fact that the modern Democratic Party, I'm not talking about all Democrats, I'm talking about the leaders that run the Democratic Party are hell-bent on destroying this country for whatever reason, but they certainly are not for life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee of happiness, which to me is the bottom line of what this is all about. So I applaud what happened out in McAllen, Texas, and it does my heart joy because it gives me hope that maybe we can stop the progressive takeover of this great nation, because we absolutely need to. And here's another story we're going to do that in a way ties right into this. This is from The Hill. Some Democrats wonder when Schumer will get tough with Manchin. So Chucky Schumer, there he is, old Chucky, who is the Senate Majority Leader. God, it does me no joy to say that. Manchin has come out and basically said, just flat out said he's not voting to end the filibuster. And so let's get into this, because progressives are pushing back against Schumer and, of course, Manchin, then pushing to Schumer to punish Manchin for taking this stand. Let's get into that. Senator Joe Manchin's defiant statement that he will not vote for a sweeping election reform bill to get rid of the filibuster has progressive groups and some Democratic lawmakers, who most of them are remaining anonymous, by the way, wondering when Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer will get tough with the West Virginia Democrat. Well, Joe Manchin is in a pretty strong position, and so actually is Kirsten Sinema that I showed her. These are the two that are standing up as Democrats. Our future as a nation may actually depend on them, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I want to talk specifically about Joe Manchin for this moment. He's in a strong position because, first of all, he just got reelected, right? He just got reelected in West Virginia back in 2020, so he's got a 6-year term. The Republicans are dominant in West Virginia, but they like and trust Joe Manchin. I understand you have a kinship to him, so to speak. I get it. I get that. And he has from time to time acted just right. So here's the thing. The Senate is split 50-50. This is what puts Manchin in a huge position. If Chuck Schumer and the rest of the progressives put too much pressure on Manchin, now, he's never said this publicly, and I don't know that he said it privately, but he could flip over and either become a Republican or stay a Democrat and caucus with the Republicans, which then would do what? Shift the majority to the Republicans. So Schumer is in a tough position. He may want to punish Manchin, but he realizes he could lose his position as majority leader if what I just said scenario actually happened. And it's a very real possibility. And one thing about these career politicians like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the one thing you know for sure is They care about their positions, and they're going to do anything to hold on to that power. And then you throw on top of that, and we're going to talk more specifically about this in just a moment, but Schumer is being threatened with the primary. He's up for re-election in 2022, and there are rumors that Ocasio-Cortez, and we're going to get into it a little deeper in a second, is thinking about running against him. But as far as like Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, I got to tell you, I trust them more than Romney and what I call his three Omegas. That is Senator Collins from Maine and Senator Murkowski from Alaska. I don't trust those three, period. So if Manchin were to flip to the Republican side, at least caucusing with him, it wouldn't shock me if one of these flipped the other way. The only thing that would keep somebody like that from doing it is because they might think it's a threat to their power. Because I think Murkowski is actually up for re-election coming up soon as well. So it's really interesting, the politics of this. It's entertaining to me. I guess I'm just so much sicker than others, and I'm a political junkie. Manchin is a member of Schumer's leadership team, and Schumer has several points of leverage, including the power to replace him as chairman of the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee. God, I hope he does. Man, I hope he's stupid enough to do that, to actually take Manchin off those committees, because if he does that, which I don't predict he will, by the way, but if he did that, Manchin would then, I think, because, if you don't want to lose these committee chairs. So Manchin could then cut a deal with the Republicans and get even a better chairmanship if there is such for him, and certainly maintain his chair of that committee. So I don't think Schumer's going to do that, but God, I hope he does. Schumer is up for re-election next year, as I said, and there is speculation he could be challenged in a primary by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I don't know who wore it better, her or the donkey, but, maybe that's not fair. On a side note here, we talked about this a little bit a couple of days ago, I guess maybe yesterday. The time runs together. If you want to watch our podcast, by the way, you can look at it through Recoil TV. You can certainly see it archived on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. But one of the best places to go is America's Voice News. They're an alternative to the mainstream media. For instance, they covered the Trump rally the other day when all the other networks like Fox and didn't. So check them out. We're archived on their streaming service on a daily basis. Check out their shows tab. They're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, the free apps on your Android, your iPhone, channel 219 Dish Network, and the Pluto channel. So check that out, America's Voice News. Look to the streaming channel, which is free, and you can see our show there archived on a daily basis. But what I talked about how Marjorie Taylor Greene had put pressure on, and she's got a feud going with Ocasio-Cortez. Of course, I've volunteered to let's get ready to rumble and be the referee of that cat fight. I would love to. Is that sexist to say? I don't know. I'd love to referee between them anyway. But Ocasio-Cortez put out a tweet or something like that, basically saying that her abuelo, I think that's how you say it, which is her grandmother in Puerto Rico, was suffering because Trump had stopped funds from going there after the hurricane that devastated Puerto Rico, and that her grandmother, which is several years now, not like a couple of weeks, but several years, has been living in some kind of squalor over there. And Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed out that Ocasio-Cortez makes like a couple $100,000 a year just off of, and probably a millionaire by now. And she's single, doesn't have kids to take up. Why don't she go over there and take care of her grandma? Well, on top of that, I want to update that story because Matt Walsh, who's a big YouTuber, I don't know, he's on Daily Wire and many other things. He's on Tucker Carlson quite a bit. He started a GoFundMe site for Ocasio-Cortez and her grandmother. And within just minutes, basically, he raised over $100,000 on that, right? But the GoFundMe shut it down because Ocasio-Cortez came out and said, well, her and her family aren't going to accept that money, So that brings up the point. Either her grandmother is not suffering or she's suffering on purpose. Why wouldn't they take the money, as Matt Walsh said last night on Tucker Carlson, and I applaud them, why don't they take the money, even if they hate the guy, and use it to help people around Puerto Rico? Because it's not about that. It's not about helping people. It's about pushing a message to stay in power. And all of this has been exposed, and all of those who did it, I really believe that they've done a service. Now I want to play this video. Now this has nothing directly to do with this story, but I want to send it back out because this is Ocasio-Cortez talking to her followers. I want to send this back out to Ocasio-Cortez for her to run against Chuck Schumer and to keep pushing Schumer and Manchin because, well, you listen to the video and then maybe you'll pick up on why I want her to use her own words for herself. Check it out.
Let this moment radicalize you. Let this moment really put everything into stark focus. Because this election has always been about the fight of and for our lives. And if anything, tonight is making that more clear to more people than ever before. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to get more and more and more clear.
That's good enough.
Up until election day.
I like how she says that it's getting more and more clear. Now, she was talking about the death of the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But right now, I'm telling you, this Senate Bill 1, this For America Act, which I tell you when they say that, what that means, man, you're getting ready to take it. It is the crucial issue of our time. Because if it were to pass and the Supreme Court actually, which I'm not predicting they will, actually let that pass through and stand as law, well, you can hang up conservative values, period. Period. I'm not even talking about Republican. If you believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee of it like I do, you can hang all of that up because we're going to be in total progresso world if that bill passes. No Republican, no conservative, no patriot will ever win the presidency again if that SB passes. So I applaud Manchin for doing it. I hope Ocasio-Cortez will do just like that video. That's why I put it back to her. Let this moment, Alexandria, let this moment radicalize you. Keep pressuring Chuck Schumer. Run against him. Keep pressuring him to knock Manchin out of his committee assignments. I hate to even say this because it might give them ideas that I don't want them to have. I want you to stay the course. Push your conscience forward. All of you, vote your conscience. Seems like Manchin is, because we need to, as she said, Ocasio-Cortez said in that video, we need it to be more clear than ever, the line between America first and the rest. And we need that line to come out. So let this moment, for God's sakes, let this moment radicalize you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and push Manchin as hard as you possibly can and run against old Chucky, man. I hope you do. I'll endorse you if you run against Chuck Schumer. I might even give you a couple of bucks if you run against Chuck Schumer, because I'd love to see that, man. Progressive activists are running short on patience with Manchin and also to some extent with Schumer. And I say, God, please keep it up. I hope you do. Here's one of them, and I think she speaks in a way for a lot of these progressive groups, because they had a lot of examples. They all kind of sounded the same. Yvette Simpson, the CEO of Democracy for America, a progressive grassroots advocacy group, said clearly, he talking about Manchin, he has decided that he respects and admires Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell more than he respects Chuck Schumer in his own party. Well, I don't particularly respect any of those. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference, believe it or not, between Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell. Because to me, they're just pigs at the trough waiting for their turn at the trough. I mean, that's just the way I am. But she went on to say, he, talking about Manchin, writing an op-ed about what he's going to do, my advice to Chuck Schumer is to put a bill on the floor and see what he does. And I say, amen, sister. I am with you 100%. Put the pressure on Chuck Schumer and Manchin every day, 24/7. Manchin even said that when he talks to reporters that that's all they ever ask him about is the filibuster. You got any other questions? So I'm just praying they keep hammering Manchin all and on. But this Miss Simpson, Yvette Simpson, she added this. She said, this is core, talking about the Senate Bill 1. This is core voting rights protecting black and brown people listening to, valuing diversity, reversing white supremacy. They ought to make it all about race. This is foundational to the democratic process. So that last statement, man, just stuck in my craw. This is foundational to the democratic process. So making it about Jim Crow laws, even though they were all brought to you by Democrats, you know, all the negative things to African Americans, including slavery itself, all brought to you by Democrats. It's just the truth. You know, you don't have to accept it, but, you know, look it up yourself. It's just the truth. But what this really gets to me when they try to insinuate that somehow black Americans should have less expectations. We should have, as a nation, and the Democratic Party for sure, should have less expectations of black Americans. I don't buy that. I don't accept that. I will never accept that. And I'm not trying to pretend to speak for black Americans. I'm speaking for Americans in general. I don't accept that Americans aren't capable of greatness regardless of their color, their creed, or their nationality. I mean, to me, e pluribus unum actually means something. From the many, one. And that one was the belief in the U.S. Constitution, if you want to talk about it. But I want to play you a video that I find heartbreaking. This video is heartbreaking to me. It happened a couple of days ago in Chicago. And I don't know. And I got a question for black Americans out there. Doesn't this bother you? I mean, I know it's got to bother some people, but this video you're about to see, well, it pretty much speaks for itself. Check it out. I think you get the picture. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, I don't really talk about this much because I try not to personalize it too awful much. But, you know, my wife is mixed race. She's Bahamian, she's black, and all of her children, which are my stepchildren, and I love every one of them, including all of my grandchildren, are black. They are. And I can tell you, I don't know if you remember the video a while back where these young men were demonstrating in Baltimore in front of a school, I think it was. And this black mother saw her son, who was like 16 at the time, out there, and she went out there and snatched him on live TV right out of that line and said, "You're coming home with me." I got to tell you, I don't think they would, but if one of my daughters, I don't even consider them my stepdaughters, they're my daughters. If one of them, I saw them doing that, I'd probably risk my life maybe, but I'd go out there and snatch a knot on their head and drag them out of there. I just can't imagine that the majority of black Americans approve of that right there. And I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush like this. I can't believe that a majority of Americans who believe in America, not that she's perfect, but that she's the best experiment we've ever had in governing people in this world of ours. I just find it difficult to believe that you don't find that personally offensive, especially when you look at it's all young. Now, they weren't violent, but they're young people out there on the streets, and they're actually degrading themselves in public on top of a police car. I just don't see how anything good can come from that. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. But to me, you know, when they start playing this race card, to me, it's actually going to backfire, just like it has for McAllen, Texas, with Hispanics when they in the previous story. I gotta hold hope out there. Well, we're pretty much out of time. I was going to get into the story about Ron DeSantis. Look it up, a Breitbart article. I'm American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God. But Ron DeSantis has just signed a new bill that basically is protecting citizens of Florida from the influences of China. And so the governors are leading the way. The action is in the states. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please remember our new time is now going to be 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live version of the show. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Man, let's pray for this nation. She needs it and deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.